Hello and welcome back to 5-Minute Parenting Tips with Lou Harvey-Zahra, and this is Socks the cat and Rusty the dog. Today we're going to talk about storytelling and how important it is for parents with children up to 7-9 years old to really incorporate storytelling in family life. I once had a friend who was a chef who wanted to write a cookbook that the title was Just Cook. And when I talk about reading and stories and storytelling, I want to just call the heading Just Tell Stories, because oral stories for children, which are stories that we make up ourselves, are the best type of story because it's alive, it's being made up in the moment, and our children are creating all of the imaginative images to go along. And I don't really know children, if you say, shall I tell you a story, most children will say yes. It's quite magical. Now if you feel that you don't have the confidence to tell a story, know that people have been telling stories since the beginning of time, and it's more just having a go and letting it flow. Having a go and letting it flow. Sometimes it helps to have a family theme. In our household, we told stories about a dog called Bingo, and the dog was always in the family storytelling. And if anything was happening in our life, like if my daughter was visiting the dentist, then Bingo was going to the dentist in a story, and he liked the chair when it went backwards, and he knew that the dentist had smiling eyes even though he couldn't see the dentist's face because of the mask. And the little mouthful of water at the end, not water, but the liquid to gurgle around, and everything happened to the dog. So when my daughter went, she was very confident and very happy with all the things that happened to her. The same as when she was counting and she was learning times tables. Bingo was planting bulbs on the farm in twos, and so he sat behind the tractor counting 2, 4, 6, 8. So I say to you, think of a theme. Have you got a theme? It could be a dog, it could be a cat, it could be an elf, it could be anything that you might find jumps out in your environment for you, and you can start telling stories. Stories are great on car journeys when children are niggly, on walks when they get tired. All of a sudden you're back to your destination because you've been telling a story and they're busy listening. They can be a nice ritual if you want to do Friday night storytelling and you put a cloak on or a piece of material when a child is sick. Sometimes they'll ask for a story too, when they want to hear the next. When they're older, they often throw in ideas to help to tell the story along with you. My stories always started the same way. Farmer Joe's alarm clock went off and Bingo put his paw out and pressed the pause button. And then it went off again, and Bingo pressed the stop button, got the paper, put it on the table, downstairs ready for the eggs and toast, so that Farmer Joe had his breakfast and the day started. I also encourage you to tell stories of when I was a little girl. Get Nanny and Grandad to tell stories of when they were children. For my children, their grandparents grew up in Malta, and so stories of driving buses at 14 and all these things that happen to them are quite fascinating for our children, and it's wonderful for grandparents to have a voice and tell their stories. Also tell stories of your child when they were a baby, particularly if they get a new sibling. You need to keep sharing with your older child, when you were 1 you did your first steps in this room, and you can keep telling stories of their life as a baby and they feel included, as well as having their baby album out. So tell stories, make up your own story with a character. When I was a child, if they're doing a certain behaviour, then you can also say, look, when I was a child I found it hard to share with my sister, but then I learned that I used the timer, and then we could take turns fairly and we didn't argue so much. And you can do the same behaviour but with your stories of childhood, and this helps your child to learn too. So please, all I'm saying is tell oral stories throughout the day. You may actually go to the play corner and say to your child, find me 4 toys, and they might find you a train and some trees with the cloth and some cows and another item like seashell, and then you will weave a story out of these toys that they bring you. This is a really fun way of just making up a story. In my parent classes, we literally go around one at a time, saying one sentence each as the story gets passed around. So we realize how alive it is and magical when we tell stories. There's traditional stories. There's Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, which comes in very handy at winter, where you might tell that story and invite the 3 bears along for your porridge. There's a story on the magic porridge pot. Please look it up. When we say, "Stop, little pot, stop!" and we have to use the right words, otherwise the porridge pot just keeps cooking and cooking and cooking. And that's a story that helps when we need to say to our children, "Stop, little Jason, stop." So we can also look up these old fairy tales, these old nursery rhymes, and do a retelling for our children. And that makes it very magical. So yes, we can have wonderful picture books for our children. My publisher is Floris, and I love their picture books. My children have loved the seasonal books of Ollie's ski trip for winter, Woody, Hazel and Little Pip for autumn. There's also the Sun Egg, which is about an orange, which can be also used and in the summer. And this is Stan Bullivon and the Dragon. Any books, picture books by Floris, are amazing, beautiful pictures and stories. We can also do chapter books when children are 4 and 5 onwards. My children loved Enid Blyton. And you can have Tales of Toyland when they were young. Naughty Amelia Jane. My children love the Children of Cherry Tree Farm and the Children of Willow Tree Farm. I'm keeping all these books for their grandchildren. In Happy Child, Happy Home, there's a whole list of chapter books starting at 4. Mr. Galliano's Circus series by Enid Blyton is wonderful. Millie Molly Mandy. Our favourite was Teddy Robinson by Joan Robinson. My Naughty Little Sister is wonderful. When they got older, from 7 we read The Faraway Tree, and when they were older still, like 9, my son read The Famous 5 about 3 times, all 23 books 3 times over. Then, after 9 or 10, all The Little House in the Big Woods, Laura Ingalls Wilder, are wonderful. And all the movies that have been made are actually classic storybooks. So Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is a wonderful book. James and the Giant Peach, Charlotte's Web, fantastic books. If you show a child the movie and then you read them the book, all they'll do is imagine the scenes that they've seen in the movie. But if you do read the child the book and later on you have family movie night and they see the movie, they get offended. They say, "That's not Jimmy. Jimmy didn't look like that," because they've made all the imagination up. So please give your children the treasure of storytelling to them in all those ways. Making up your family theme. When I was a child, when you were a baby. Retelling the wonderful tales. Using the toy corner and getting 3 toys and making up a story. Getting the toys and the cloths and the trees and the animals and making up a story will mean children will play that way with the toys and talk and do this oral storytelling themselves. If we want children to get really passionate about reading, we have to give them really fantastic books. Then they'll want to read. They'll want to read books. And they'll keep being a lover of reader as they grow up and as adults. And if we want them to do really well in English, yes, it's ages away to do VCE, but when they've heard us tell a story, they know how also to tell a story with a beginning, middle and end. But really, it's a precious jewel to connect together for parent and child and have this magic and this time of sharing with each other. So, there are my tips for storytelling and books. If you want more, you do have Happy Child, Happy Home, which has a whole chapter on storytelling in all the different ways and the chapter books. So does my website, www.skiptomylooparenting.com. Have the chapter books And it has my 2 books, Creative Discipline, Connected Family, as well, which you can buy online at my website, any book site all across the world, Booktopia, Fishpond, all of them. It's also available in hard copy as these books or as an ebook. So please tune in again. You can press your thumbs up to like, you can press subscribe. Every week I'll talk on a different topic, giving you inspiring and practical tips for happy children, happy homes. Thank you for listening. See you next time. That was good, darling, but I lost the thing.